Good afternoon, everyone. We are here with Dr. Wolfgang Rack. He's originally from Austria, and now he's professor at the School of Earth and Environment at the University of Canterbury, New Zealand. Kia ora to everyone.
Yeah,
Now he is the director of Gateway Antarctica at the University of Canterbury. And full disclosure, I know Wolfgang, Dr. Rack, because of a research day I did during my PhD at Dr. Michel LaRue's lab at the University of Canterbury. And I had the honor to have a guest lecture on the study of wildlife through remote sensing within his course on remote sensing for geospatial data analysis. So without further ado, Dr. Rack, welcome. And the first question that probably our audience would like to know is, what is Gateway Antarctica? What is this particular division within the University of Canterbury, which such an enticing name?
yeah, Kia ora. Yes, thank you for having me. So Kia ora is how we greet each other here in the New Zealand indigenous Maori language. Uh, so thank you for having me. Yes, and thank you for the introduction. So I am, as I said, I'm a professor here at the University of Canterbury in Christchurch, New Zealand. I'm a glaciologist, and I did my undergrad back in Austria in meteorology and geophysics, but that was back in the 1990s. And so I was always interested in remote sensing, satellite remote sensing, and in snow and ice. And I had a chance after my undergrad first that I did a master's in satellite remote sensing of the Antarctic ice sheet. And after that, I got the opportunity also to continue a PhD, which was also related to Antarctic glaciology. And that was super exciting for me because I could actually combine it with fieldwork in Antarctica.
Yeah.
So for my PhD, I could travel to Antarctica and in a collaboration with the Argentinian program, I had the opportunity to go to the Larsen Ice Shelf, which is at the eastern side of the Antarctic Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time when we started to observe with satellites the retreat and the disintegration of the Larsen Ice Shelf. And that was, from a glaciological point of view, super exciting. Also, at the time, we didn't really know the context in terms of global climate change or regional climate change. So there was a debate going on, and we were sure at the time that it was a regional climate signal, but how it is related to global climate signals, that was not that clear at the time. Now we know better. So we were just right at the start of kind of a period where we see really strong signals of the vulnerable parts of the cryosphere to climate change. So kind of that is how I started my career. But just to come back to your question, uh, then after so I did a PhD in Austria, but then I went on to the Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany, to a polar research center. I stayed there for a while as a postgraduate, sorry, as a postdoctoral researcher, and then I came to New Zealand to Gateway Antarctica. And Gateway Antarctica at the University of Canterbury, the name is originating or is coming from the fact that Christchurch is a gateway city to Antarctica. So several national Antarctic programs operate out of Christchurch.
Hmm.
It is one of the five gateway cities. There are not that many. There's one,
No.
no, there's one in Argentina, Chile. There's one in South Africa, in Australia, and there is this one here
Yeah.
in well,
It's what we got in the southern
in New Zealand.
hemisphere. Like there's more
Yes,
water,
exactly.
so
So exactly. So we are far. So New Zealand is kind of far away from many other places in the world, but it's close to Antarctica, and
yeah,
that is, of course, very attractive. And that is so as a gateway city, Christchurch is a gateway city. That is where this small research institute at the University of Canterbury, where that name is coming from. And the main role really is kind of coordinating Antarctic research across the university. And it is important that we are multidisciplinary,
yeah,
which means we try to connect different disciplines. And maybe 20 years ago, 10 to 15, 20 years ago, it was not, we could not take it for granted that glaciologists work with biologists and work with social scientists. We were in our silos. But we realized over the past, and especially over the past decade and 15 years, that of course we need to focus on the connections, on the multidisciplinary, and in the future also more and more on the transdisciplinary research to solve the science questions we are facing. So now meteorologists needs to work with glaciologists, with oceanographers, with biologists, ecology scientists, and so on. And despite all the research what we are doing, of course, and all these findings, of course, at some point we of course need to translate it into policymaking. And that, of course, is where then social science comes into this research. So that is one part, but the other one is also that so it is Antarctic research in general for New Zealand and Christchurch is important. It is also important for all the Antarctic activities for tourism, and that is also where social science comes in. We should keep in mind that now these days many more tourists go to Antarctica than researchers. So also that needs to be controlled and regulated in some way because our goal is really to protect the environment. And there have been a lot of progress has been made over the recent past. And one of the and just to point it out, one progress was also the establishment of the marine protected area in the Ross Sea, which then, of course, leads us also to the question: how do we use the Southern Ocean? How do we work in the Southern Ocean, and how do we extract natural resources from the Southern Ocean by fishing, for example? And that is also a research where Gateway Antarctica is very much involved. So that is kind of the reason for the word Gateway Antarctica VI Research Center. We do courses in Antarctic studies, introductory courses, but also advanced postgraduate courses. For 20 years, we were one institute who brought students to Antarctica every year, up to 15 students for the postgraduate certificate in Antarctic studies. Unfortunately, we had to stop that with COVID. At the moment, Scott Base is rebuilt.
mm,
So there is investment in the infrastructure, so there is a bottleneck, but in the near future, we will also try to re-establish and keep that course with the Antarctic field component. At the moment, we still run that course, but at the moment with community placement, so students would actually get the opportunity to work in business and industry ministries, Antarctic New Zealand for logistics providers in Christchurch and New Zealand during that course to get experience about Antarctic research, decision making, and so on. So it's also the postgraduate certificate in Antarctic studies is also a multidisciplinary course. We are very proud about it. So we have a large number of alumni from that course at the moment around 300, and many of these alumni then continue to work also in any kind of Antarctic fields.
that's marvelous. Yeah, no, it's a singular program, so I wanted you to describe it because who better than its director and people should be aware that this program exists. Um, you have already told us about your career, but our audience would wonder what a glaciologist does. How does your day to day look like with knowing that no day is the same as the next one, but perhaps how does your day look like at the lab and how does your day look like in the field?
Yeah, so there are different fields also in glaciology.
Mm,
So it's actually quite a wide field these days. So it's not only research, but there's also experts in glaciology working in tourism in ski fields for hazard management, avalanches, to protect roads. So in permafrost research. So there are quite a lot of fields these days, but many of these fields are all, or I should also mention computer simulations, know how to look into the future, how are glaciers evolving over time, especially now during climate change, alpine glaciers, mid-latitude glaciers, but also ice sheet, sea ice, and so on. But so I always worked a lot with remote sensing data. And remote sensing is a measurement, it's a contactless measurements used in Earth observation by taking measurements from very far away. So from satellites, Earth orbiting satellites. And these satellites also, and these data and measurements also need ground reference. So we always need to keep in mind that as a remote sensing scientists, we are dealing with data which are not taken in direct contact with the object. So it's an indirect measurement, so that requires also a reference and validation. Um, and that is how I built my career. And I was always kind of very keen to do that because I wanted to have a variation between office work and work what I can do in the field. And I'm still in a position that I can take students also to the field for field work to do this work together, to collect data. And that could be as simple measurements as the snow thickness on sea ice or the snow morphology in snow pits or in drilling snow and ice cores and looking at accumulation of snow over time. And that is all data what we then can compare and reference to the satellite data. So we go to the field, we do point measurements pretty much. Sometimes we do airborne measurements which cover larger areas. But in general, the main idea really and the goal is to have these very local measurements or point measurements on the ground and use the satellite data to extrapolate that to larger areas.
right.
Antarctica is very large. It is sometimes also dangerous, especially if you look at sea ice. There are areas where we even can't think about or can't do any measurements. So that is where we need a combination of drone or airborne measurements with the satellite. So we try actually to assess the state of the cryosphere over large areas. And we have a chain from the point measurement to the large area using the satellites. So, and that gives me and our team here also the opportunity kind of to vary our work and our research from the field work, still going out into the nature, but also then, of course, spending time for data interpretation, evaluation, and once we have done that, also to write findings in scientific publications and to publish our work. Yeah.
Don't we all have to?
Yes. Yes.
uh,
So that is an important part of every academic or researcher's work, really,
yeah.
that we need to come up with no our hypothesis. We have our research questions. Why is ice in the Southern Ocean or in the Antarctica changing? Then we come up with research plans. We put that into applications. We submit that, for example, to governmental agencies who can provide research support and funding. Once that is approved and we get funding, then we can, with that funding, for example, we would buy instrumentation. We would be able to also employ researchers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But the outcome of that in that research plan, of course, needs to be a pathway how to publish these
Yes.
results.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And we are all aware that glaciologists are have the role of you know, noticing danger, noticing the advancement of climate change, especially when you compare glaciologists to other disciplines. Yeah, sure, you're probably amongst the first to see the effects of climate change, but beyond that role, what do you think is the role of a glaciologist to after that? Like, what does a glaciologist bring to a table when addressing climate change, when implementing policies and such?
Yeah, I mean, and yes, you're completely right. I mean, the research is the one thing, and how would we then turn that into a policy? So, no, first of all, we need to understand the environment, and we need to understand how snow and ice is reacting to change. And we need a good understanding because there could be various reasons why snow and ice in the world is changing. Now, a simple example is a glacier here in New Zealand or in the Rocky Mountains or in the European Alps or Himalaya. Now, why would a glacier kind of change its size? And it could be a combination of precipitation, less precipitation, or an increase in temperature. So it's very often a combination of various climate factors. And we need to have a good understanding because we want to come up with results which are robust so that we can clearly use ice and snow as what we say as a climate meter. No, we want to use it as a tool, if you like, which tells us something about the environment. And now we can look into the past. No, glaciers and ice sheets have changed in the past, and we would like to understand that. And if we can get a better understanding how it changed in the past, we can also get a better understanding how we would expect that snow and ice will change in the future. Yes, so it is interesting that, of course, ice, glaciers, sea ice, it is, first of all, also an indicator of change. And we want to understand that. We want to observe the key areas of change where obviously remote sensing and satellite remote sensing is a great tool to do that. Um, but then we also want to have, of course, a deep understanding, and we need to get that a deeper understanding because we want to feed our knowledge into model simulations to predict the future. And we can only do that if you really know how the change is related to climate change. Um, so that is important, but we also have to keep in mind that snow and ice is not only reacting to climate change. So if you look at large ice masses, especially the sea ice in Antarctica or the ice sheet, they're also a driver in change. Because if we look at the global cryosphere, we always have to keep in mind feedback processes. So snow, ice, the cryosphere in general is always very important for climate feedback processes. And that is where it is sometimes quite difficult to look into the future because how the system is connected, the cryosphere is connected to the hydrosphere, to the atmosphere, that is sometimes very complex. So, and that the complexity really comes in because of these feedback processes. No, one of the prime examples of a positive feedback process is the reflectivity or albedo of sea ice.
Yeah.
Now, if you get less sea ice, then less sunlight would get reflected into space, but it would get absorbed by the ocean. The ocean would warm. We would get even less sea ice, and then the
And so
warming would
on.
increase, and so on and so on. So that is a typical example for a positive feedback process in climate, which is actually not positive in that sense. It's actually quite negative, but
It's
we are
negative for
dealing so.
us. Yes.
Exactly, but so we it's especially those positive feedback processes which we would like to better understand,
Mhm.
and that will be critical, that we can really then get a better knowledge how quickly will change no on in our world happen. And that is often related to global processes. If we just think about Southern Ocean and the sea ice and sea ice formation, which is related to global ocean circulation. So we get quickly actually in global processes if we look at large areas like Antarctica or the sea ice in the Southern Ocean.
Yes. Yes. Well, Dr. Rack, it was a pleasure, Herr Professor. Vielen Dank für das Interview. And I will continue our programming from Campus Climate Corps. Thank you so much for being with us. And please say hi to everyone at Gateway Antarctica and especially to Dr. LaRue.
Yes, I will do that. And no, it was a pleasure also on my side. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Of course. See you next time.
See you.